Hi, this is Dominique Viscuso with Your Home Imagined. We do property management in Temecula and surrounding areas. In my last video, I talked about the eviction process. Now I'm going to cover the 3-day notices. These are the first steps to the eviction process for at-fault evictions in California. These notices give the tenants 3 days to correct the problem or vacate the property. There are 3 different notices that you can serve, depending on the violation committed by the tenants. These include 3-day notice to pay or quit, 3-day notice to cure or quit, or 3-day notice to quit. Each of these notices has its own purpose and is used for different circumstances. Please remember, I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. It is always recommended to consult a lawyer to ensure you comply with state and local laws and regulations. Please like, share, and comment. Let me know if there are any topics you would like me to cover. First, I'm going to cover the steps that are the same no matter which of these notices you are serving. You must list the names of all people living in the property over the age of 18, whether they are on the lease or not. Confirm that there are no typos in the names or addresses, as this could result in the case being dismissed if it goes to court. The notice must be officially served to the tenant. There are 3 types of service that you can do. A personal service, where a copy of the notice is personally delivered to the tenant, either at their residence or the place of business. A substitute service, where a notice is left with a person of suitable age or description, which means over the age of 14 and likely to give the papers to the person intended to be served. And a copy must be mailed to the tenant at their residence. I would suggest mailing by certified mail, so you have proof that it arrived. You can also post and mail, and this should be used as a last resort. If there's no one at the residence or at their place of work, then it is possible to post a copy of the notice where it will be seen at the residence. For example, either on the front door or the garage door, where the tenant would see the notice when they return home, and still need to mail a copy to the residence. And it's worth repeating, you should mail this by certified mail. You need to have proof of notice of when it was delivered. Once you serve the 3-day notice, you start counting. The first day is the day after you serve the notice, not counting Saturdays, Sundays, or holidays. An example of this would be if you served the notice on Friday, July 1st. You would not count Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, since it would be the 4th of July. Day 1 would be of the 3 days would be Tuesday, July 5th, and the tenant would have until July 7th to comply, meaning you could move forward after July 8th. No matter which service method you use, make sure to record and take pictures of each step to be able to prove that the notice was served and when. If you need to go before a judge, you must have these things. Yes, most of the time these things work themselves out and you never reach the court. But you never know which one will be the one. I've been asked several times if these forms or details are important, and my answer is always only in front of a judge. And then it's everything. Let's go through the forms. 3-day notice to pay or quit. This notice is served when a tenant fails to pay rent on time. The notice requires the tenant to pay the rent within 3 days or vacate the property. If the tenant pays the rent within those 3 days, all is good and it's back to normal. If they fail to pay, then you file an eviction lawsuit. Please see the previous video on the eviction process. I always recommend using a pay or quit as soon as possible. The longer you allow the tenant to go without paying, the more they will expect this in the future. If rent is due on the 1st and considered late on the 6th, notices should go out on the 6th to anyone who has not paid. Make sure you know if your property is subject to local city or county rent or eviction control ordinances above and beyond the state controls. Please see my video on AB 1482 for California state controls. 3-day notice to cure or quit. This notice is served when a tenant violates a term of the lease agreement other than rent. For example, if the tenant refuses to sign a lease renewal, if AB 1482 applies to you. If the tenant refuses to allow access to the property, or if the tenant has a pet on the property which is not allowed in the lease, then you may serve the tenant a cure to quit. The notice gives the tenant 3 days to fix the issue or vacate the property. If the tenant complies within the 3-day period, then they get to stay. If they fail to do so, then you can file for an eviction lawsuit. When you are filling out the 3-day notice cure to quit, it is different if your property applies AB 1482 or not. Please see my article on 1482 if you do not know if you're exempt or not. If 1482 applies, then you fill out paragraph 2 and check the box in paragraph 3. If the tenant does not comply with the 3-day notice and AB 1482 applies to your property, then you must also serve a 3-day notice to quit before you can file with the courts. If your property is exempt from AB 1482, then you need to check the box in paragraph 2 and fill out paragraph 3. You are also exempt from having to serve a second 3-day notice to quit, and you can now file with the courts. The 3-day notice to quit. This notice is served when a tenant commits a serious violation. This notice requires the tenant to vacate within 3 days, and there's no chance to fix the problem. Examples of violations are if a tenant engages in illegal activities or causes substantial damage to the property, then you can use this form. You must check the box on the notice that discloses the violation of the lease that the tenant is being removed for. Unlike the other 2 notices, this notice does not give the tenant an opportunity to correct the violation. If the tenant fails to vacate the property within 3-day period, you can file an eviction lawsuit. It is important to note that you must follow the proper legal procedures when serving a 3-day notice. The notice must be properly served. The 3-day period must not count weekends or holidays. And if the tenant fails to comply with the notice, the landlord must file an eviction lawsuit and obtain a court order before they can legally evict the tenant. Thank you for watching. Watch my previous video on the eviction process or AB 1482.